to be holding it and knowing that Jose went on the craft, picked up the canvas, part of the canvas that was covering on there with his little cheater bar, and just basically pulled it off and said, "Hey, I want a piece of history. I want I want something that I can show my friends and family that I saw this craft, this unidentified craft." Kind of when you hold on to it, it gets kind of cold and it kind of gets hot. It's very interesting. And when you hear about some of the anomalies, it is very intriguing.
Tom, could you let me know, how did you get involved in this case in the first place?
Yes, it was in 2012. Paola had been doing research and invited me as an assistant to go with her to New Mexico. And we first went on site, and Paola did some interviewing with Jose. On a subsequent trip, we happened to be at the Owl Bar Cafe on I think the one of 2 days or weekends of the year that the Trinity test site is open. So we were able to visit the Trinity. I went to the Trinity site, test site, for the first time with Paola. So my involvement, to answer your question, is, I was an assistant to Paola, and she invited me to help her and to be with her as she did her investigation and exploration of the case. Yes, as far as Jose is concerned, for me, Jose was the very best part of the Trinity case. He is articulate and impeccable memory, solid character. I could find no motive in Jose whatsoever, and I questioned him and spoke with him on many occasions. I could find no motive at all, no motivation for him to seek to tell a story or to fabricate. So for me, as an eyewitness, Jose is absolutely a star in this case. He also corroborated quite well with Remy, who had already passed by the time that I was assisting Paola, but their stories aligned well. And then later, there was an interview with Ms. Padilla, and everything that she added as well. I mean, it was a beautiful symphony of eyewitness testimony for me. I was on site, several times prior to them appearing, and the spot was barren on the times that I had visited the site, and it was interesting that at one point we went back to the site, and this oval shape, this area where the plants were, was populated by these very strange plants. This is high desert, and a little different from Scottsdale, Arizona, where I lived for 25 years, a lower desert, but this was a high desert. These plants didn't look natural to the terrain. To me, they didn't appear. I mean, there was nothing else like these, and they happened to be just in this huge 30-foot diameter space, right exactly where the crash site had been, and as I understood, had been bulldozed over some decades previous, but it was right above that. The plants were very odd, and I unwisely touched them the first time that we went out, and I had a severe reaction to them, hives and rashes. It was very uncomfortable. It lasted for about a day.
Is this a plant that, I mean, it's natural, it can grow in the desert anywhere, but just happened to be all clumped into that one area?
Well, I'm certainly no botanist, but I have never seen this plant growing, certainly not in Arizona where I lived for so long, but I'd also been in New Mexico a lot over the years. I'd never seen this plant growing. It was very strange. It was a very odd occurrence to see it. And I'd never seen it growing naturally anywhere in the Southwest region.
Okay, do you think it's possible that it was planted by government or somebody to keep people away from that site?
Well, that I don't know. I can only speculate. Whether it was planted or whether it was natural, it didn't look, the circumstances and the environment did not seem natural to me. Now, whether it was planted, I mean, I couldn't say, but it certainly was a deterrent, natural or otherwise, to keep people from that area.
Another theory might be that somehow the craft did something to the land and made it hospitable for that type of plant to grow right in that spot. Don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I've read accounts where there are reports where plants have oddly grown in spots where there had been previous UFO retrievals, crashes, unusual plants, and that certainly is a theory. I mean, I think one to be considered. Who knows about the disturbance of that soil even all these years later? The bracket I found really fascinating. When I've held it on many occasions. My first impression was that to me it looked like an aluminum alloy. It was certainly lightweight for its size. It didn't seem unusually remarkable to me in terms of what it was. But what I did find remarkable about it was what it could have possibly been used for. Its shape was something that I couldn't have even guessed what that could have been. Jose was explained how he retrieved that and where it had come from. And I believe he referred to that as a bracket. Now, whether that was terrestrial or extraterrestrial, I think the proof is, in the metallurgy and the lab test results and everything that have been done. It was interesting to hold, and it was fascinating to think that I was holding a piece of history, something that had come from a 1945 retrieval. It was in that sense, it was absolutely incredible to me.
All right, so I met Paula probably about almost 15 years ago, and like Tom, I was her assistant for different UFO cases, and in particular, the San Antonio, New Mexico crash. I was there, I would say maybe 3 times, and the time I was there with Tom was in 2015, and I got to, just like Tom, I got to interview Jose on several occasions. Actually went to the site, and he would tell the same, like Tom said, he would tell the same story over and over. He was very consistent. So just like Tom said, he has integrity. He's also a former state trooper like myself. So I really, hold him high in esteem as far as being, his veracity, I think, is very, there's a lot of truth to what he's saying. And I don't see any motives for him to be making up something like this, because he never wanted to, tell the story to make money or anything like that. It was just like, I want to get this information out there so people can see what happened, because people don't realize this was a couple of years before the Roswell incident. So yeah, and So Jose's testimony was very believable. Yes.
Yeah, it seems like, somebody like him, I mean, especially at that time, your reputation can be on the line. And he's
Yes.
not doing it for money. So, and him being a state trooper, why would you want to put your neck out on the line if you're not telling the truth?
Jose, again, very credible witness, and him and Remy Baca. And like Tom said, Jose had a great memory. Remy, I know Paula interviewed Remy. Remy said that Jose had a photographic memory. So, and he remembers everything almost to the T. I mean, very, very articulate, and all the little nuances of the case is very interesting.
Dave, did you have any involvement with the poisonous plants? Did you become sick with them? Did you touch them?
Well, I was fortunate enough to, when I went with Tom and Paula, I got to wear a hazmat suit because we didn't want the same thing that happened to Tom to happen to me. So went out into the field, and like Tom said, it's just very odd in this round circle where, this 30-foot diameter where the actual avocado shaped craft, after it crashed and is in the spot, that same spot, 30 feet, years later, all of a sudden this poisonous plant is there. So it just seemed a little suspicious why I was in this circle and nowhere else. So I went out in the field and dug a couple up, and we put it in these special containers to have them analyzed. And the botany name is Xanthium strumarium, or better known as cockleburr, which not only can cause rashes like Tom got, but also can cause like vomiting, also altered mental status or mental state rather. So yeah, it is very poisonous, and just odd that it was there. We can, like Tom said, we can only speculate. Maybe a group put it there because they don't want people digging in a place where quite possibly there are parts, remnants of this craft that could be there. So kind of trying maybe to keep people away. So yeah,
Sure.
I mean, there's some truth to that. So I got to spend time with the bracket and just, touch it, feel it. And there's no numbers on there. So that was a little bit odd, like, manufacturing number, nothing there. There's little glyphics like on there, like little diamonds all the way across. I thought that was a little bit odd, like maybe 5 or 6 in a row. And kind of echoing what Tom said, just a real light aluminum. I know that Jacques did some tests. All I know that what he said the other day in his interview, that it's a very rare alloy. And so, yeah, it's a very peculiar piece. And I want to echo again what Tom said, just to be holding it and knowing that Jose went on the craft, picked up the canvas, part of the canvas that was covering on there with his little cheater bar, and just basically pulled it off and said, "Hey, I want a piece of history. I want something that I can show my friends and family that I saw this craft, this unidentified craft crash, and I want a piece of history with me." So it's really cool to just look at it and feel it, and it kind of, when you hold on to it, it gets kind of cold, and it kind of gets hot. It's very interesting. And when you hear about some of the, like Tom said, the anomalies, it is very intriguing, and you're going to hear about that.
But that's the question I have today. Why haven't the government confiscated this from him? Is it because possibly that would then have them admitting that this is real?
Right.
Like, why hasn't he had any flack from holding a piece of the UFO? Like, I mean,
well, the military did try to confiscate it. They did try to. I know they went to his house many times looking for pieces, and Jose and the family said there's nothing here, and so and he kept it in secret, right? It was kept in secret for a long time, many years.
Okay, now I've heard that story, but what about of late? In other words, this story of Jose is out there on the internet. The metal, there's pictures on the internet. All the background chatter is on the internet.
Right.
So it strikes me as strange that, many years later, they haven't come knocking for is it that just because so many years have gone by, they just don't care? Or maybe, you know, the original people that were involved with it are gone, and today's government officials don't have any real direct involvement with this case, so they really don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think what you said kind of is probably the truth, is that it's been so long. A lot of the people who are involved have been deceased, and there's, you know, as you know, there was many other crashes in New Mexico at that time around the advent of the atomic bomb, and I think there's a lot of different people who had, you know, remnants or pieces of crafts. Like, other than that bracket, you're probably well aware that there was some angel hair type of metal that was on the ground, and some of Jose's Remy Jose got some, and then they actually hung it on the tree, and it kind of was like, you know, cut you, but it was like a real strange, you know, it had this strange thing about it, and I'm sure it's in the book as well. So other remnants that they had. So yeah, no, I know it would be like, well, why aren't they going right to the source and getting it? Well, I don't think they can now, because I think it's locked up and it's safe, and I know they've done many tests, not only here but also in Mexico as well. So, yep. So,
Perfect.
yeah, the book's going to be very interesting. I just think that this is proof, very similar to the Roswell case, that there was a certain type of interest from possible extraterrestrials, right, in regard to the atomic bomb. And I think they were wondering, what, you know, are we going to destroy ourselves? Or what are we doing here? And I think in this era, there were, you know, like I said, many crafts coming down in New Mexico. And I think it's just, this case is so important in the history of the nuclear age, because we know that there's a threat, you know, today and every day, that we can blow up this beautiful Mother Earth. And they were concerned. And I think this is just a really important case that needs to be told to the world. Mm-hmm. Even though it's very old, but like we said, it's the story needs to be told. And I'm glad that you guys are interviewing us, and we can get the word out to the people.
So what was your initial involvement with Trinity?
So my initial involvement was with Trinity was when I went with Paola and Jacques. And, you know, talk about synchronicities. We were at the crash site for the weekend. And then one morning, Jacques was eating breakfast at the hotel, picked up the paper, and only 1 of 2 days out of the year Trinity is open was then. So we just said, okay, we got to go with it. And we went to Trinity, and, you know, I had read about it in, you know, elementary school and high school, but boy, when you go there, you really get the depth of it, the magnitude of it, and then couple that with our field investigation to the site of the crash. You know, it really made things come together at a much deeper level. The history, the science, along with the sacred site that for Native Americans where the crash was, and how it just began the, you know, the war economy age for nuclear bombs.
And what do you think of Jose's story?
My first thing I always do is I want to observe the contactee or the person, the experiencer, and really judge, go with an open mind, but really use discernment. And you have to have critical thinking, and just not only what they say, but their body language. And I have to say, spending 3 days with Jose, he's a man of integrity. I didn't catch any desire to be famous or to make money out of this. In fact, he waited decades for his story to come out, and I believe him. I think, you know, we all will view our experiences and our sightings through our own lens of perception, but aside from that, he has integrity, and I think what he's saying, we've verified a lot of the stuff, you know, and I think he's the real deal.
Did you see the bracket and the metal? And what do you think about that?
So I saw the bracket and I saw the tests that were done on it, not by Jacques, but by a previous investigator in the labs in Mexico. And yeah, you could see the nano fibers coming out of it. And, you know, many people will say, well, if it's made out of, and I don't have the exact metallurgy in front of me, but say, for example, oh, it's made out of tungsten or aluminum or carbon. People say, well, that's just on Earth. But that doesn't negate the fact that it could come from outer space, because other planets have same minerals as we do in many cases. And it's an interesting piece of metal, and the theory that it was used as a kind of, you know, turning handle. But I did see it, and it's interesting because that's my first time as a UFO field investigator to see actual physical evidence that was manufactured by someone, be it ETs or whatever.
Okay, and Bill, is there anything else you'd like to add around this Trinity case from your own personal experiences or personal thoughts? Anything else you'd like to add here?
I guess for me, aside from being able to work with Jacques and Paola, which was amazing, they're both incredibly earnest researchers who want the truth, is that for me, there's a very interesting aspect to this case that you have the site of the first atomic bomb detonation in the same area where this sacred Native American Indian site is, where you could still, you know, they would sit around. It's basically right where the crash was. And the third aspect is the site of the first recorded U.S. Army UFO retrieval site. And so I believe, this is my own personal opinion, but I believe that that crash wasn't just accidental. I think that our benevolent galactic neighbors are trying to tell us that, look, you guys, you got to stop playing with these nuclear weapons, because it not only does it affect us and our planet negatively, it probably affects outer space and the cosmic fabric of the universe as well.